There is something that happens after the lights go out. Not immediately, not while you are still scrolling or listening to something or running through tomorrow in your head, but sometime in that stretch between deciding to sleep and actually sleeping, something shifts. The noise of the day settles, the to do list loses its grip, and you find yourself thinking in a way you almost never do during daylight hours. Not anxious thinking, not planning thinking, something else. Something that feels almost like you. Some people notice this and call it restlessness. They lie there wondering why their mind won't stop. But for a particular kind of person, this window of time is not a problem. It is the part of the day they have quietly been waiting for. They feel more honest in it, more present, more like themselves. And if you are that person, you have probably never heard anyone explain why. That is what this is about. The feeling of being most alive just before sleep is a real and recognizable pattern. It is not insomnia dressed up in nicer language, and it is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It has a shape to it, and once you understand that shape, you will see yourself in it quite clearly. So let us start with what the brain is actually doing in those late hours. During the day, your brain is in what researchers loosely describe as an active, outward-facing mode. You are responding to the world. Someone asks you something, you answer. Someone needs something, you shift. There is a constant low-level monitoring happening, a kind of social and environmental alertness that you barely notice because it is so continuous. It is like a background application running all the time, using resources you do not know are being used. That monitoring is not neutral. It costs something. It pulls your attention outward, toward other people, toward tasks, toward whatever the next thing is. And because it is running all day, it can make it genuinely difficult to access the quieter parts of yourself, the thoughts that are not urgent, the feelings that are not needed for anything, the parts of you that are not performing or producing or deciding. And then night comes. The body begins preparing for sleep hours before you actually fall asleep. Body temperature starts to drop. Certain hormones begin shifting. The nervous system starts very gradually to ease out of that daytime alertness. The world outside gets quieter. The demands on you become fewer. And the outward-facing monitoring starts to loosen its grip. What fills that space is often surprising. Creativity tends to rise. Ideas connect in ways they did not during the day. Memories surface without being summoned. Feelings you could not quite name while you were busy suddenly have words. Some people find themselves writing in their head, or solving something they had been stuck on, or feeling a clarity about a relationship or a decision that escaped them entirely during waking hours. It is not magic. It is the natural result of giving the mind room to work without interruption. There is a concept in psychology sometimes called the default mode network, which is a set of brain regions that become more active when you are not focused on an external task. When you are daydreaming, or reflecting, or imagining, or making sense of your own life story, this network is doing a great deal of the work. During busy daylight hours, it gets quieted down by the demands of active tasks. But as the day ends and the demands lift, it has more space to do what it is built to do: process, connect, reflect, make meaning. For some people, this is the first real window of the day where that network gets to run properly. And so the experience of late night is the experience of finally, genuinely thinking, which is why it can feel so alive. But understanding the mechanism is only part of the picture, because not everyone feels this way about the late hours. For some people, lying in the dark is genuinely uncomfortable. The quiet amplifies worry. The absence of distraction becomes an absence of protection. So what is different about the people who flourish in it? A lot of it comes down to what the daytime feels like for them. People who feel most alive before sleep tend to have days that are full of things they are genuinely engaged with, but also full of performance, full of managing how they come across, reading the room, adjusting. They are often thoughtful, often observant, often the kind of person who notices what other people are feeling and responds to it, which is a kind of generosity, but it also means they spend a lot of the day being outward facing by nature, not just by circumstance. For that kind of person, the daytime can feel like a long conversation that never quite gets around to what they actually want to say. Not because anyone is being unkind, just because the conversation keeps moving and there is always something that needs responding to, and their own interior experience gets set aside, quietly, without drama, just set aside. And then the lights go out and there is nothing to respond to, no one to read, no adjustment needed, and whatever they had been setting aside all day is still there, patient and waiting. This is why it feels like arriving somewhere, because in a real sense, you are. It is also worth saying that some of this follows a biological rhythm. People vary genuinely in their natural sleep timing, what is sometimes called chronotype. Evening-oriented people have a body clock that runs slightly later than the social schedule usually allows for. They are not being lazy or difficult when morning feels grim and late night feels rich. Their internal clock is simply calibrated differently. For them, the hours when most people are asleep are the hours when their mind is running at something close to its natural peak. The aliveness they feel is partly chemistry, not just preference. But even for people who are not especially evening-oriented, there is something about the liminal quality of the pre-sleep hours that is genuinely different. Liminal means threshold, in between, not quite one thing and not yet another. You are not in the day anymore, but you are not in sleep yet either. And that in-between quality can be strangely freeing. The rules of the day no longer apply. The expectations have let go. And you find yourself in a kind of personal honesty that the structure of the day rarely allows. This is where the thinking that matters tends to happen. Not the thinking that produces results, but the thinking that produces understanding. The kind where you finally figure out what you were actually feeling last Thursday, or why a conversation left you off balance, or what it is you actually want that you have been too busy to name. Some people describe this as when they feel most creative. Others describe it as when they feel most themselves, most honest, least edited. And those two things are probably related. Creativity often requires dropping the edit. It requires the mind to follow threads without immediately checking whether they are acceptable or useful or going anywhere. That dropping only really happens when the pressure to perform is genuinely lifted. And for many people, that does not happen until quite late. There is a gentle irony in all of this. The hours that feel most alive are the hours the body is preparing to go unconscious. The state that feels most creative arrives just as sleep is trying to begin. And so some people lie there, genuinely lit up, genuinely present, genuinely themselves, at the exact moment when all of that would be most useful in sleep. If this is you, one small thing that can help is to treat that window as what it actually is. Not a delay before sleep, but a legitimate part of your day. Keep something nearby to write into. Not a task list, not planning, just a place for whatever surfaces. A few sentences, an image, a feeling, something you finally figured out. Getting it out of the loop of your mind and onto something external often allows the mind to release it, to stop holding on to it, to actually let go and rest. The aliveness does not have to be fought. It just needs somewhere to go. And if you notice that you are someone who needs this window, who genuinely depends on this part of the day for some of your clearest thinking and most honest feeling. It is worth being a little protective of it. Not every late night needs to be filled. Not every quiet hour needs a podcast or a screen. Some of what you think of as insomnia might actually be the mind doing necessary work, and the only thing missing is permission to let it. This is general reflection on patterns many people share, and if something about your sleep or your thinking has become genuinely distressing, it is always worth talking to someone who can offer proper support. But for the person lying in the dark right now, not anxious, just awake, just thinking, just feeling unusually present in a world that has finally gone quiet, what you are experiencing is not a problem. It is something quite human. The day is built for output and response. The night, the real late night, before sleep finally arrives, that is where you get to simply be. And sometimes, simply being is the most alive you ever feel. There is something worth carrying from this. Not a change to make necessarily, just an understanding. The parts of yourself that only come out when the world quiets down are not lesser parts, not leftovers. They are often the clearest parts, the most honest ones, and they deserve a little of the credit they rarely get during daylight hours. If this felt like something you needed to hear, we put something new here every day. The subscribe button is there whenever you are ready.